Parliamentary reform in the 19th century tends to focus on Parliament, and we forget that there were national campaigns going on around the country to get Parliament to pass reform. Some of the most important campaigns were in Birmingham. The first Reform Act, for example, relied very heavily on the work of Thomas Attwood of Birmingham and his Birmingham Political Union. Other groups and men involved were the Chartists, who were very strong in Birmingham in the late 1830s and wanted parliamentary reform. Joseph Sturge in 1842, the Birmingham Quaker businessman with his complete suffrage union. And in 1867, the Birmingham Liberal MP, John Bright, was the main man pushing through the Second Reform Act. People forget just how important Birmingham was in the struggle for parliamentary reform. And in this film, we look at some of the local people and local events which shaped this reform. Thomas Attwood, 1783-1856, was born in Halesowen, but moved to Birmingham as a young man to work in the family bank of Attwood and Spooner. At the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815, the government cut back very heavily in its spending. This helped to bring on an economic depression, which caused problems for Birmingham businessmen and massive distress for working people. In reaction to this, Attwood developed new economic ideas. He wanted to ease credit conditions and increase the money supply. He thought that this would increase demand for goods and therefore help business, employment and wages. He could not persuade the unreformed and corrupt Parliament, dominated by aristocratic landowners, to adopt any of his ideas. He realised that a reformed Parliament was needed. Thomas Attwood and a group of his business friends and supporters, plus George Edmunds, the leader of the working classes in Birmingham, decided in 1830 to form the BPU, the Birmingham Political Union, to work for parliamentary reform. In order to find out more about this, we need to move to where they held their meetings, Mr. Beardsworth's repository. In December 1829, Thomas Attwood and his middle-class supporters met to plan a political union of the lower and middle classes, what he called the industrious classes, to work for extensive parliamentary reform. 25th of January 1830, accompanied by a band and banners, members collected in Temple Row and Waterloo Street and walked down Upper Temple Street to Mr. Beardsworth's repository. It was a large building, usually used for horse auctions, which held thousands of people. The meeting was reported widely throughout Britain. Many other political unions were soon formed, often modelled on the BPU. It was run by an elective council of 36, including George Edmunds, best-known leader of the Birmingham working class. The BPU, in thousands, would meet up on Waterloo Street, then march down Temple Street towards Cheapside. In one of their great meetings in Mr. Beardsworth's repository, an auction house which would hold 4,000 to 5,000 people, they set out what they wanted in a petition of right in 1830. They wanted the vote for all adult males who paid any kind of tax, that is, practically every male in the country. They wanted secret ballot so that no one could bribe or intimidate voters. They wanted no property qualification for MPs, and also payment of MPs, so that ordinary people could become MPs and not just rich people. Mr. Beardsworth's repository would hold 4,000 to 5,000 people, so it was ideal for their annual general meetings. Between the meetings, they would keep pressure up on Parliament for reform with mass petitions and also mass meetings, the largest of which, involving tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, were on Newhall Hill. 7th of May 1832 saw the most famous meeting, again to pressurise the Tory Lords. This was the meeting of the unions, with unions from all over Britain. Vast processions came in from all directions, 5,000 from the east, 10,000 from the south, 25,000 from the west, and 100,000, a procession 4 miles long with 11 bands from the Black Country to the north. It was an impressive display of controlled, organised, peaceful power. All the bells of Birmingham were muffled and rung as though it was a giant funeral procession, and over 100,000 people appeared on Newhall Hill to protest and to try and overawe the Lords. When the bill was finally passed by the Lords, many people felt this was due to the pressure from the Birmingham Political Union and its allies around the country. After the excitement of the passing of the 1832 First Reform Act, most working class people were disappointed by its results. Their employers gained the vote, but they did not. Many decided that independent working class political groups were needed. One such was the London Working Men's Association. In 1836 it adopted a 6-point charter of parliamentary reforms, which were more or less the same as those of the Birmingham Political Union of 1830. The charter was very popular and rapidly gained working class support across Britain, including in Birmingham. Its supporters were given the name Chartists. It is striking that they wanted political reform rather than immediate social and economic reforms. They realised that a party depending on their votes could quickly pass all the reforms they wanted. The main tactic was to organise a mass reform petition to be presented to Parliament in 1839. Chartists all over Britain gathered 1,283,000 signatures as a petition to Parliament asking for reform. Chartist meetings were held in the Bullring throughout the early summer, sometimes twice daily. Alarmed local magistrates enrolled 2,000 to 3,000 special constables, made arrests and readied troops, including cavalry. On the 12th of July, 1839, Parliament rejected the Chartist petition by 235 votes to 46, causing massive anger amongst the Chartists.